Hey, it's Jer Stays, and it's Thursday, December 24th, 2020, and you know what that means? It is Christmas Eve here in Detroit. So we're going to share something a little special with you. We've gotten some of the team together to chat about 2020, 21, and what's ahead. So please enjoy, sit back, relax, have some eggnog, spiked eggnog, non-spiked. You know what? Do you. 2020 has been a journey. So whatever you need to do, you do you. And after this, the next time you hear from us is going to be on Monday. I'm going to spend the next couple of days with the dogs and enjoy the holiday, and I hope that you do too. So without further ado, let's get started. As we do every year, we like to get the folks around the fire and have a little chat about the year, the holidays, all of these kinds of things. This year, it's a little bit different because we're not in person. Remember when we've done this at the University District House, things like that. This time, we're all getting together virtually, and joining me today are Shianne Nocerini, our associate producer and behind the scenes. Hi, Shi.
Hey, everybody.
Randy Walker, engineer extraordinaire, also does some of our food coverage.
Hello.
And then, of course, man about town, Devon O'Reilly. Devon, good to hear from you.
Great to be here, Jer. Hello, everyone.
Well, first off, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, happy all the things that you celebrate. It's good to see all of your faces, and it's kind of a different format for us for the show because normally we're going through stories or doing an interview, but I kind of wanted to reflect back a little bit on the dumpster fire that was 2020 and look forward to 2021 wherever we can to get us started. I figured we would kind of get into some of the things that, frankly, are hopes for 2021 or some things from 2020 that turned out were all right. And I would say that I have a couple of hopes for 2021. First off, that we keep all of the street closures and parking lot closures and all of this outdoor dining stuff because it's way more attractive for the built environment and all these things to be outdoors. I mean, I'm not talking about wintertime. I'm talking about all that stuff during the spring and summer. I'll be honest, a lot of the sad stuff was a lot of fun. And I personally think we should have been doing this a long time.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I hope that the various municipalities get their drinking districts established so that we can wander around town, downtown, the neighborhoods with our cocktails as we go from bar to bar, because that will definitely help revitalize the bar industry that has been kind of suffering over the course of the pandemic.
Yeah, I second that, Randy. I do hope that what we've seen in some of the innovations around drinking districts, to-go cocktails, some of the more lax rules on where you can take your drink and things like that have shown us that we can do this, and maybe we don't have to be as strict on this, and we can kind of open up things a little bit to allow small businesses and even larger ones that sell alcohol to do it a little more freely.
Well, I'll be honest, a lot of the rules seem to be rather restrictive with this kind of stuff, even compared to other states, right? And I think people can handle it. I also think that districts would be a good thing for tourism to attract people. You know, when I travel, what's interesting is when I go to a place and there's a variety of experiences. It's not just one bar or one restaurant, and then that's all I go to. I get back into the car and leave. That's so much of Metro Detroit. And if we want a lot of these restaurants and bars to keep going, I think we really need to focus on the idea of districts. If you look at places like Midtown, you look at places like Corktown, the area around Campus Martius, things like that, Capitol Park, where you can go into one destination and have 5 or 6 or 8 places of fun. I just think that's so important and really key to the going out experience. And especially as we get on the other side of this pandemic, people are going to want to see each other. And it's a great way to kind of mix and know people and things.
Yeah, absolutely. You see them in other places, Vegas, for instance, Savannah, which I was in a few years ago, and Savannah has a great drinking district, I guess you could call it, where you can walk around. And if you think about it, there's just really no sense to why, I have a drink here, I have to finish it and walk over there and have another drink. What's the difference if I walk somewhere else with my drink? It seems silly when you actually think about why we have that rule. So
yeah, strolling down Fremont Street, dipping in and out of bars and restaurants, walk from the bar to the place that sells the deep fried Oreos with your drink in hand. It's just a casual, fun experience. And having to get rid of your drink to go do something else just doesn't make sense.
For sure.
I think that Detroit also is ripe for it too, just in the sense of the different confluence of we have a city administration that seems to be open to innovative ideas. We have a very clear downtown entertainment district, I guess you could say. Some might call it, Gilbertville, what have you. But it does help when you want to pull something like this off and you've got a single entity that owns and operates all of these buildings. If Bedrock decided they wanted to do this, pretty much Bedrock and the city together could make this happen.
Well, I have a second hope for 2021, and I think it's a pretty big one. I just really wish that everybody would find a way to treat each other better. And I don't mean that in the civility way, but in the honestly care about each other kind of way. I think there has been some wonderful stories of people helping each other and doing things around the pandemic. And then there's also just been a lot of strife that, frankly, that strife has hurt us in trying to beat back this pandemic. I just wish we would have more compassion for each other.
One thing I've noticed good on that, Jer, is, it is hard, it seems, to find things that people from multiple sides agree on. But small business and supporting small businesses has been one of those things where, obviously they have been hurt, arguably the hardest, but it does seem like a bipartisan, whatever you want to call it, thing where everyone says yes, we need to support small businesses. We might have some disagreements about exactly how to do that, but at least, that's one thing that came out of this is more awareness for small businesses, for the need to patronize, for the need to support, to put your dollars into small businesses.
I know for us, we've been shopping around small businesses for the past couple weeks. And yesterday we were in Urbanum and she was like, I have had a record breaking year. Everybody has come through. I'm overwhelmed with how many people have shopped small. And I know there's a lot of other small businesses who are also feeling incredibly blessed this year. A lot of makers who missed out on the circuit of the live shows throughout the entire summer. They've made that up this holiday season. A lot of them have. Unfortunately, the mail system is kind of a little bit of a problem right now, but we really have rallied the troops, if you will, to help the small businesses stay afloat. And I do think that that's really positive to see.
How much of this shift do you think is going forward and is going to stick?
I like to shop locally, whether that is small business or just a big box store. I like the instant gratification of walking into a store, getting what I need, and leaving. I don't want to say that things stay the same, but I hope that that opportunity continues. I hope there are still opportunities to go into a store and pick up what I need.
Yeah, I think when you can make the shopping part of an overall experience, like you said, Jared, that's really key. And so sometimes that means making the store itself the experience, or sometimes that means having stores clustered together or adjacent to other experiences. I can go to a movie and then I can go to the store. I can go grab lunch and then I can go to a few stores, and there's a few specialty shops that are nearby. I think sometimes proximity is also key. We look at Canfield, where they're at, and you have City Bird and Nora, and those are all Third Man Records. They're all clustered together in Shinola, and they become they were just feed off each other. If someone walks into one, if you walk into Shinola, you're probably going to walk across the street and pop into City Bird too, because you're in the area. So creating these little clusters, much like the drinking districts we just talked about, creating these little shopping clusters and districts is also key. And I think, Jared, that's the way you'll preserve the kind of in-person shopping.
I do want to point out the level of experimentation that stores have also done. A lot of them have actually avoiding online presence and not having a website. But this year, it's kind of forced them, most of them, into doing a website and having online sales. And that's helped. And so stores like Modern Natural Baby, right now, they're not open to in-store shopping because of the pandemic, but they're doing curbside pickup. They're doing car delivery, and they're continuing, to provide a really great service with a lot of great things. And so I think just the level of ingenuity for these small businesses have helped. And I do hope that they continue to broaden, because not everybody can go into a store. So I think it's a dual thing. I do think in-store shopping should continue to be a thing, and I hope it is, because there's nothing better than walking into a store and being able to actually touch or feel something and see if this is going to work or if this is what I actually want, because I'm an in-store shopper too.
One of the stories that we covered on Friday has already made kind of an impact, Devon. Those pergolas decked out Detroit. I was driving past all that stuff, and man, it was busy. It was like an instant impact with all of that stuff. I know that's something that you noticed yourself.
Noticed myself, have got to experience firsthand. The pergolas that they did in the downtown district, it's fantastic. People are using them. And what I like about them, and I mentioned this before, is that, they're done in accordance with kind of the health guidelines. There's no kind of gray area where we've seen some of these people put up essentially structures outside. And, I don't know how that's helping anything really. But these are in accordance with the health guidelines. So they're a little chillier, so you're going to have to dress warm because you just got the heater above you. But people are doing it. They bring their own blankets, gloves, and scarf. And, a friend of mine was going out the other day, and he said there was an hour-and-a-half wait at Calexico, hour-and-a-half wait at Ettore just for seating there. They ended up going over to Cornerstone, which also had pergolas. But it's a really cool concept, and it's just going to increase the amount of people going forward, like you said, into 2021. This is now added space that now becomes nearly a Four Seasons patio that these restaurants didn't have before. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, the thing is that so many people are just done with this pandemic. I know we're always advising folks to be smart and be safe and be socially distanced, but I feel like these pergolas and things like that, they give people who really need it or need it emotionally to go out and do something and do it in a decently safe manner. Being socially distanced, being outside is so much better than being inside, because we've still got a few more months of this thing to go. I mean, although the travel is kind of crazy, we're now seeing 1 million people a day on airplanes. Like, this is one of the things where we're getting to I hate to say that it's because the pandemic's not over, but it's the social type of end where a number of people just say they're done and they just stop observing restrictions. It gives people a release valve, because I think a lot of people, I hear it from listeners all the time. Like, they don't want to get sick, but they're done. And they also, frankly, as we're recording this, the coronavirus relief package is not a thing. Like, it's not going to get signed. It may not pass. It may pass. Who knows with anything anymore? People they're done and they want to enjoy themselves. And they're also kind of like scared too, because for certain segments of our economy, it's just not been a great story.
Yeah, Jared, you mentioned release valve. I think that is, for a lot of people, it is. If the people haven't been able to go out for months and months and months, even just being able to go out safely or relatively safely one night and use one of these outdoor patios, or take advantage of these pergolas and feel like, hey, I went to downtown Detroit, I went out to a couple of bars and restaurants, had dinner. There's that release of like, this felt good. And, I don't need to do this every day, but I haven't been able to do this in such a long time that it was just great to get out. And I've seen a lot of friends, people who live in the city, live farther away, who have been able to do that holiday one night with, your significant other, and you go out and enjoy yourselves in downtown. It's been really cool to see that, and promising for the future.
Well, I remember earlier on when the case numbers were a lot lower, I kind of had an idea that all of this was going to happen. I know there's been a lot of magical thinking, but I had an idea. This is way back near the end of the summer, early fall. And I had this idea that we're going to get back into a bad place. And I remember, Randy, you joined me for a socially distanced drink at Kiesling. And it was really great to do that. I mean, almost nobody was around. We were away from people. Randy, you and I know what each other have been doing and that kind of thing. We wore masks and did all that kind of stuff. But it was really nice to be by a fire and doing things, even though it was socially distanced. There was no one around. It was also outdoors, even though it was kind of chilly. And it really set in where it's like, wow, we have really made a lot of changes. And there's just a lot of people who are tired.
Yeah, you have to do something for your mental health. Maybe go pick up food when you're ordering in normally. Just do something to just break up the monotony of staying home and staying inside.
This is hard. And I think it's good to admit that, yes, we all want to be safe, but also we need to talk about the fact that it is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I would, focus on the fact that we're getting to a point where we can see the horizon. It's going to be a tough few months, but it'll really be interesting to see what happens over the next few months. I think it's absolutely critical, because the cases are now going down. Clearly, the pause worked in so much as it brought the cases way down. And so we'll see what happens, because as you mentioned, Jer, when that happens, people get restless. And now, there might be people saying, all right, well, look, cases are low again. Let's have back at it. We're kind of at that point where vaccinations are starting to happen, but we're nowhere near a mass vaccination. And so there's this really weird space that's going to happen, I think, between now and, say, April.
Well, health officials are really worried about it, Devon. I mean, a lot of them are saying we're entering a pretty dark phase. So I think it's important to be careful. So real quick, what are some of your favorite stories that you're looking forward to right now? I mean, there are some things that are happening with the new year. I hear that although the taco joint that was originally going to go near my house is moving to the West Industrial side of town, and that's fine. I hope they do well. I hear there's another taco joint filling its place, so I still might be able to get tacos within walking distance of my house. So, very small personal win.
Definitely, Jer. No, that's great. I think that my little hope also revolves around, like you said, the hope of new things to come, bars and restaurants in Detroit, obviously my passion. It looks like we've got a new iteration of what was Tom's Oyster Bar, what was Briggs Bar, is now going to be the Sloppy Crab, which I walked past. They've got a great new facade that they put up. Catchy little name. Sloppy Crab, you got my attention.
Sloppy Crab, huh? Alrighty. But you know what? That venue is great on the corner there, right by the Renaissance Center. You go on that deck. That deck is amazing. It's like you're in the middle of Chicago. You've got skyscrapers around you. You got, usually some kind of hanging lights. There's streets. There's a mix of architecture. It's in a great location around Bricktown. So there's so much potential with that space.
When I start working downtown again, and I say when, not if, because I need to stop working from home or, mix it up by going back into the office occasionally, I will definitely want to check that out. It's a new place downtown, so I'm excited to try it.
Yeah, can't wait.
I will gladly meet you there.
Sounds like a standing date for all of us. Again, same thing, Randy. When I start working downtown again, it's right by where my office is, so it'll be really cool to go to. That rooftop is amazing, like you said, Jer. So it'll definitely be another springtime destination, hopefully. Sounds like they're going to have some seafood, a bar. Should be great. So that's definitely something to look forward to, and it sounds like they'll be opening sooner rather than later.
Although, Devon, you never really ever leave downtown, do you? I mean, are you like me where you cross 8 Mile and you slowly dissolve into dust?
Basically so, Jer. I live in Midtown. The closest I get is Dearborn, which is where my parents live. But, Dearborn's kind of like enveloped by Detroit anyway. So it's I kind of think of it as all the same thing.
And it's south of 8 Mile.
And south of 8 Mile.
You draw 8 Mile across. You just keep it going. It means you can go anywhere south of 8 Mile. You go north, you got to make a leap up to Mackinac Island. You just have to go all the way up to up north.
That's a fair thing. I can't wait to go back up to Mackinac Island sometime soon.
Me too.
North of 8 Mile, we have new development here in Ferndale. The parking structure is finally open. It is called the DOT, which is short for the Development on Troy, which I think is a horrible name, and I hope they work on changing that. But some 370 parking spaces now available in Ferndale. Not doing a whole lot of good now in the middle of a pandemic, but once things kind of get back to normal, this improved parking situation will definitely be an improvement for downtown Ferndale.
I know on the Ferndale Forum that both Randy and I are on, there's a lot of hate for that parking structure. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's that whole don't Royal Oak my Ferndale thing. But I know from living around downtown Ferndale, parking was always an issue. And now we have a parking structure and people are mad that we have a parking structure. And I feel like no one is ever really happy.
People are never happy. They always complain about those things. I mean, Shai, you literally lived 2 blocks from 9 Mile. You were right there. And I remember visiting your place and there was nowhere to ever park anywhere at any time. And that was years ago. I can only imagine it's worse.
Oh, it is worse. And during festivals, during any kind of big event, there is no parking and people are parking in the neighborhoods. And then the people who live in the neighborhoods don't have parking. And it's just one big cycle. So I'm excited to park in that parking structure. I cannot wait. And also, I believe that they are working on building residential on the back end of the DOT as well. That is like the second phase of this project. So they're working through that with the city and residents and all that stuff.
And there's space for retail and commercial in the structure as well. So that'll be a boon to downtown as well, new businesses.
Isn't that kind of that whole idea of a complete neighborhood or a complete like little downtown? I mean, downtown Ferndale, and we've had the folks from the DDA on the show before, things like that. That's actually a pretty complete area. That's one of the few areas that you can get everything you need within a short space.
It is. And that's why I love Ferndale.
Well, joining us, a late addition, but glad to have him anyway, Fletcher Sharpe. Man, it's good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, as always.
So, Fletcher, what are you looking forward to most in 2021, sir?
Honestly, Michigan sports, Detroit sports as a whole, just elevating itself. Whether it's the Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, Pistons, Detroit City FC, even the Michigan Stars, if I have to. Just any Detroit area team elevating itself so we have some positive things to talk about when it comes time for me to mention those things.
Sometimes we're stretching, man, on segments. I mean, although there's good news with Detroit City FC, you were going to say they got a new U23 team.
Yeah, it's kind of going to mimic their NPSL team. It's going to allow them to use college players you might have heard of before who played a bit and need some way to get back to the pro ranks, youth kids in the area. It's really bridging the gap between the youth kids in the area and a professional team, which is something you really want to see. It's all those teams over in Europe have stuff like that. It's really good to see.
I was going to add another team, Fletcher, the D-League team that we're getting. When are they going to start playing?
Hopefully sometime in 2021. Everything's kind of in flux right now with COVID and sports. And NISA is the most responsible soccer league in the U.S. so far. And they don't want to put people out there if they can't get a good product. So hopefully sometime in 2021. If not, eventually.
I know you're both Pistons fans and into that. What are you guys both thinking about that for the season? Devon, I know you're a big basketball guy.
I'm a big basketball fan. I'm looking forward to the season because it's basketball. We're gonna be playing NBA basketball. Having said that, I probably won't get to go to Pistons games like I usually do. It's going to be an interesting product. We're definitely in a what you would call a transitional season here. It seems like we've got, Blake Griffin and then a bunch of just random parts and really young players that are going to try and kind of fit together. So it'll be interesting to see. I know Blake's been a great champion for the city and supporter, and, all indications is, he enjoys playing with this group and this team. But also, he's a piece that I think if Pistons top brass could move him, they might look to do that so they could just do the complete rebuild.
Yeah, I expect him to be bad. If they make the playoffs for some odd reason, I will think I'm in a fever dream, to be quite honest, because the parts they have right now are not built to win the championship. They're not really even built to win games. They're built to compete, which is good. The rookies they have so far have shown that they are projects, but they have talent. Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Wash, they all have talent, and that's all I really just want to see. And they got rid of LiAngelo Ball, so that's already an addition by subtraction. So
yeah, we didn't need that distraction.
Well, I think it would be time to get into a couple of listener questions. I'm always interacting, especially via email with listeners, but I picked out a couple of the ones specifically since getting our whole little group together. And I think we'll just go around the table and I'll just see if anyone's got thoughts on these. But the first one is from Bill, who asks, do you ever get nervous? You all never sound nervous on the air. I have an answer for that one, but we'll go around. Shianne, ladies first.
I get incredibly nervous before coming on because I'm usually behind the scenes, but I just push that down and pretend everything is cool.
Dev?
No, I don't really. I think especially when I come on this show and when I'm talking to you guys, it's like we're having a conversation anyway, and that's just where I put my mindset. And so you're always easy to talk to. You bring me on to talk about stuff that I know about, aka wandering around town and drinking and eating. So make it easy, and it's a joy to come on.
Randy?
My nerves usually strike after the audio is recorded. Did that sound good? Was I knowledgeable? Did I convey things correctly? Usually when it's too late is when I feel the worst about it.
Fletch?
100% all the time, yes. Because to be frank, I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough in some stuff, but as people know, there's always someone more knowledgeable than you in some topic. I'm just afraid that I'm going to say something that I think is correct, factually looks correct, and it's actually not correct. And then, someone's going to be like, hey, that guy was wrong. And, that's just going to stink. So,
well, in 2020, people can say you're wrong even if you're actually factually correct, right? Because this is the year of alternative facts, apparently.
Fair point. About how you say it. Yeah, it's all about how you say it. Just sound like you know what you're talking about.
It goes in waves for me. Sometimes I'm really nervous about stuff. Sometimes, especially people I've already talked to a bunch of times, I try to keep it under wraps. I will say that one that got me pretty nervous was when I talked to Roman Mars. That one, I was like, oh, this is somebody I've actually been listening to for tons of episodes for years, and is somebody who I really enjoy their style and what they're doing. So yeah, that one made me super nervous.
Mentioning Roman, I would say that I do get nervous sometimes when I'm running a show and not talking. Like when we were recording Rob Paulson at TEDx, I was watching the equipment, but I was like, oh, don't screw up now. So I was really nervous about messing it up, even though I could see the lights were going and it knew things were working. I still had that kind of feeling in the pit of my stomach, I hope this doesn't cut out, or I hope this doesn't drop, or I hope this doesn't break.
I wasn't going to mention this one, but a lot of listeners have asked, how on earth do we get the guests we get? Because they seem to be pretty happy with, there's always more voices we can include, and we've got some great ones in the can that we're going to be airing soon, but how do we get the guests that we get is a question we get a lot, because there's a lot of podcasters out there who are like, how on earth did you get the voice of the Animaniacs, and then also Roman Mars, and then also Kara Swisher, and then finding lots of unique voices that are local that aren't big names, but they do really well. We've got an episode about the Great Lakes Water Authority. No one's it's about sewer systems, yet people are downloading it like crazy.
We ask. The worst that can happen is they say no, but they don't. So we get them because we asked.
That's exactly what I do. I am usually the person who books most of our guests, and I just email them and I say, hey, would you like to be on our show? And that's what happened with Roman Mars. I sent an email saying, hey, you have a new book out. You talk a lot about the city of Detroit and design. Would you come on? And his publicist emailed me the next day and said he would love to come on. And I was shocked and incredibly excited. And that's probably one of my biggest bookings that I've ever done. I mean, I will ride that horse until forever that I booked Roman Mars on our show. And if you are like into podcasting or you want to start a podcast, just email.
Well, I also would add, be relevant.
Mhm.
I think that's super crucial. Just sending people out there without an idea of what you want them to talk about or just getting randos on the show doesn't make sense. It's got to be relevant to Detroit. There's got to be a tie-in. You need to be up on what's happening in whatever you're covering. If you're things about sports, if you're things about cameras, if you're things about electrical systems or poured concrete. Yes, there's podcasts about how to pour concrete. You need it to be relevant to whatever it is that you are asking about. All right, the next question would be from Sarah in Livonia. What is your biggest piece of advice for anyone else trying to start a podcast? It's interesting that we have a couple of podcasty questions as opposed to Detroity questions. I think we've all been involved in multiple projects. Fletcher, you've done shows. Shianne, you've worked with multiple shows. Randy, you've engineered countless shows for people. You know, Devon, you do a show actually with the Detroit Regional Chamber. I'll go around and make sure that I don't repeat anything any of y'all were going to say. You know, what is some of your advice for somebody starting a podcast?
I'm going to go first. Learn to edit. If you can't learn to edit, hire an editor, because no one wants to listen to 15 minutes of you just chit-chatting. No one is as funny as they think they are. And even the best podcasters have an editor.
My advice would be action. Just start doing it. You know, even if it starts crappy, the experience. When I started doing podcasting, I had no idea how any of these things worked. And I still only have part of an idea of how these things work, microphones and the software and things like that. But you just start messing around basically and you get it. Record yourself talking, listen to how you speak and, you know, your cadence and where you're messing up at. So like just start recording stuff like content, and you can eventually sift through and figure out what works and, you know, hone your skills, but just start doing it. Less talk, more action, I guess.
Have a plan, have a shtick, be unique. We don't just need another Talking with My Friends podcast. There are hundreds of those, thousands of those. They don't last long. Have a unique perspective, have a unique idea, and go from there. Plan it out. Plan what you're going to talk about. You don't need to script it. You don't need to have an outline for the year, but definitely plan it and have a topic that is something that you can stand out in.
Not to like draw from my own personal life, but when I started the Outer Drive with a friend of mine, our first 4 episodes were like really bad. We didn't really realize like how to record. We thought we'd just get in front of a microphone and talk. We recorded in front of a laptop microphone. He was like opening bags of chips near the microphone. I was standing 20 feet away juggling a soccer ball. So you just heard a bunch of just random thumps and crunches, which is like not what you're supposed to do at all because you don't hear anything anyone's saying. But I guess as we kind of realized our style and realized how we want to talk and how we like want to be spoken to and how we think people actually want to listen. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's serious. But like we said earlier, as long as you care and really, really, really care, you could be talking about like fire ants going down like, you know, holes. But if you really, really care about it, people will listen. I mean, the first few episodes people won't listen to because, you know, it's the first few episodes of anything. But like if you really care and you keep at it, people will gravitate towards it because people like to hear people talk about stuff that they actually care about.
I think that's great advice. I also think that, and I mean, this is kind of like a controversial take for some people, but I think it's important to know what you're trying to do with your podcast and realize that no one is going to listen for a very long time. Like, be okay with no one listening because you're not very good. We weren't very good in the beginning. We're still always working on it. I mean, there's still people who think we aren't very good, but there are, you know, it's one of those things of no one's going to listen for a while. And another thing that I get a lot is around guests and content. Don't care about if they have big names or not. Don't. Focus on listener value. If there's listener value, the listeners will eventually get to it, right? Like going back to that Great Lakes Water example, or thinking about like Mickey Lyons, who people like her and she's an author and she's published, but it's not like she's the biggest name in the world.
Yeah, I think, Jarrett, you kind of nailed it there. The way I look at it is when people have a passion and a knowledge about something, it doesn't matter what it is or who they are, you want to listen to them talk about stuff. So you mentioned a couple examples like the Water Authority or pouring concrete. I don't have any interest in pouring concrete, I would be interested to listen to someone who was extremely passionate and extremely knowledgeable about pouring concrete. I would listen to that podcast because I'd want to know how a master operates or why they're so passionate and why they enjoy pouring concrete so much. So like think of the most mundane thing, but if you get somebody who has an extreme amount of passion for something and knowledge in it, it doesn't matter what it is. You're going to want to listen.
Well, I remember what you said about Mickey's interview too, Devon. That was really kind of you.
It was a fantastic interview. I love listening to anything you do when you have Mickey on, when you're talking Detroit history. Dan Austin's another one. Like I could listen to Dan Austin talk Detroit history, all the time, no matter what the topic.
I mean, come on, everyone around here loves Dan. Like he could do his own thing. What's so funny about so many of the guests that we have don't realize how just wonderful they are, right? They're very self-deprecating and they just dive into whatever they do. Like very rarely do we have any sort of talking head on this show. Very rarely do we put pundits on this show. We often put experts, and if they are pundits, they're pundits who actually know what they're talking about. Like Dr. Abdul El Sayed has been on CNN a couple of times. And not everybody agrees with Dr. Sayed, but he is undoubtedly knowledgeable about what he's talking about.
I agree. And it goes once again back to the booking and just finding the right person that fits the story that we're trying to do.
One more thing I would add on about the whole podcast thing is don't start this as a get rich quick scheme, guys.
No.
That is not what this is. This is about. And speaking of that, I would be remiss if I didn't make sure to thank our Patreon members who have made 2020 the dumpster fire possible that we can stay alive throughout it. Because without that support, this stuff starts to add up. There's costs behind the scenes. Making podcasts is not free. And then a lot of the time and stuff. And we've really committed, and this is something we've gotten a few different questions about. We have really committed to making sure that this podcast is free and available for everybody, as opposed to putting it behind a paywall like a lot of people have. I don't prefer paywalls when it comes to community information. I really believe personally that access to all is really important. And because we have a different financial model, I'm not going to throw stones at other people, but because of what we do, we're able to do that. And it's really important to me. And I hope it's important to our members that, every $1, $5, heck, we have people who do more than $100 a month for this show. And you all are crazy, but thank you. It's so crucial that community funding is part of it. And I wanted to be sure to say thank you, because without members, we wouldn't be here. This is a very different model of media. Yes, we do sponsors from time to time. And yes, I think we're going to have some underwriters for 2021. There are slots for that at different levels, because advertising and all that stuff dried up with the pandemic. Everybody just kind of shut down and went, OMG, WTF, BBQ, like the world is on fire.
I think that it's one of those things where when we started this podcast, we always wanted to be of service to our community. And I think in doing so, that is why we have the setup that we do. We are member funded. We are member run. And I do think it's incredibly important because it also means that we have full editorial. Even if we had sponsors, we'd still have full editorial control over our show. And I think that it matters to our listeners. And I just want to personally say thank you as well to all of our members and to those who share our show and get the word out about us. You guys are also incredibly important to us here at Daily Detroit.
Fletch, Shianne, Devon, Randy, thank you for being part of this wild journey. Hopefully soon we can raise some cocktails at Kiesling together.
You're here.
I hope so too.